Today's topic, we're going to see if there's any foundation for a thought that I had on the correlation between tattoos and trauma. When I went to look it up, I was pretty overwhelmed. I've been wanting to do this for a while, but the more I read, the more intriguing it got with the studies that have been done specifically for that purpose to study the tattoo and the trauma correlation. Now, I have to add, I was speaking with my uncle earlier, and he mentioned that correlation and causation are not the same. And that's so true. For years and years, people have been tattooed. We've done it for religious reasons, cultural reasons, fitting into a community, tribal reasons. There are all sorts of reasons for tattoos. And some of it is just body modification. And I got to wondering, what's behind that? Well, right now I feel like a total hypocrite. When you hear what I'm going to say, you're going to say, yeah, Teri, you're a hypocrite. I was in another state where at that time people could pump their own gas. In Oregon, you could not. And there was a woman standing there, and her she had a tank top on, and the sleeve was halfway down, and she had her bra strap sticking out. She was heavily tattooed. She's smoking a cigarette. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I don't want my girls looking like that. And we would have that discussion. Okay, yeah, tattoos are great, but don't make sure you get them where they can be hidden. And now I'm feeling pretty hypocritical. I tell people, well, once I hit 50, I could do what I wanted to do. That really wasn't the story with me. And I think that's why I'm so intrigued with a possible correlation between tattoos and trauma. All right, this study I'm going to read, it is from Cambridge. Tattoos, what is their significance? And it starts out saying that tattoos, this study was done in 1955, the prevalence of tattoos is higher among people with mental disorders and those likely to come in contact with mental health services. The motivations for acquiring a tattoo are varied, and tattoos can give us clues to the presence of a particular psychiatric condition in the inner world of the patients. And they're asking, I guess this is for professionals, that psychiatrists need to be aware of the health and safety issues surrounding tattoo procedure, body modification. All right, so yeah, I was onto something. And I think pretty worldwide, we can say if we see someone with a tattoo, it tells us something about the person that has that tattoo. But what exactly does it say? What are the different traumas, and how do they affect the prevalence of tattoos, or how extensive the tattoos are in any individual? Among the early nomadic tribes, the tattoo was used a lot as identity in which tribe you belong to. It was very prevalent in Egypt, China, Japan, and India. I kind of think this is interesting. The practice of tattooing declined to the point of disappearance in the Dark Ages and Middle Ages in Europe, although it flourished among people who lived outside the law. And I think that's the way we see a lot of people with tattoos is, hey, they're not law-abiding. Those people are messed up, and you need to stay away from them. Of all people, Captain Cook introduced the word tattoo from Polynesia to the Western world on his return from the South Pacific in the late 18th century. Okay, the resurgence of tattoos in Western culture has just gone crazy over the past 3 decades. The study of trauma, people coming back from the war in the military, they were coming back tattooed, continue to get tattooed. Those that would join into a biker culture also had the tattoos marking, who, what, when, where. And it really wasn't seen in everyday people. It's getting more and more prevalent. And if you live in the Pacific Northwest like I do, it is very common. Not to have a tattoo is more unusual than having a tattoo. And the reasons before we started getting into the trauma, there were religious reasons, belonging to a group, exoskeletal defense, which I thought was really interesting. What they were speaking with prisoners, and the tattoos that they chose were making them look more tough, more macho, more leave me alone than those that didn't have the tattoos. I thought that exoskeletal defense was really interesting to prove toughness It's also associated with sexual immaturity, rebellion, and identity, fashion, female, blah, blah. And then we get into the trauma. I can only go on my own perspective here and how it affected me. I do have some studies I want to try and screen share with you guys. All right, there was a study done in 2002, Atkinson 2002, that reported that women that were obtaining tattoos to enhance the feminine image or as a form of social resistance. In the former case, the tattoos were generally very subtle and hidden, whereas they were generally bold and on exposed parts of the body in the latter. Okay, let me read this here. Throughout history, tattoos have been acquired for, as I said before, religious reasons, magical, social, communal reasons. Even today, in some parts of the world, strong religious and superstitious significance is found in certain body markings. Muslim women in Yugoslavia mark their forehead with a cross to ward off evil. People in seafaring circles have a tattoo of a rooster and a pig on either foot to protect against death. In some cultures, such as Cambodia and Burma, tattoos are required to protect the bearer in the fight or war. If you are tattooed, or if you have a specific reason that you're tattooed, drop it in the comments. Let's talk, guys. And if you want to come and tell your tattoo story, let me know. Let's get this out, because there's such a stigma with people that have tattoos. As I said, I was so on my girls, especially about not getting tattoos that could be seen. And then here I go flying in the face of what I said at a time that I was at the lowest point in my life. And what it offered me was a rush of endorphins. It tells my story. So this first tattoo that I showed you was to try and prevent self-harm, but still have the effects of self-harm. I know that sounds weird, and if a lot of you have not done that for one reason or another, or have been much stronger than I had and had better coping skills, I know that sounds a little weird, but there are a lot of us out there that understand the endorphin effect and how it just gives you a break from whatever's going on, and you're able to sit back and not really think about anything about what's happening except for what's happening. That didn't make any sense either. I hope some of this makes some sense somewhere. Okay, tattoo and piercings are more common among those who experience childhood abuse and neglect. Tattoos and piercings have been around for centuries, as we know, and they've often have a cultural or personal significance. Old-fashioned norms thought of visible tattoos or piercing kind of as rebelling against society and unprofessional. These days, though, we're moving away from that. Everyone has tattoos. If someone doesn't have a tattoo, that's much more unusual than somebody that's tattooed. Now, myself, 62 years old, being as tattooed as I am, is pretty unusual. And there's a reason for that. There's a reason for my tattoos. I didn't understand it for a long time, but I had that correlation of trauma in my mind. So when I really started to study this, it was intriguing to me that, oh my gosh, it was validating, if that makes sense. All right, this is saying that previous research on tattooed and pierced individuals has linked them to having lower self-esteem or a higher need for uniqueness. And then the next sentence is, trauma survivors may turn to body modification as a way to overcome past experiences. One thing I found interesting, and this is something that I did not really realize in myself for a while because I blocked it off, is that survivors of sexual abuse tend to have more tattoos, body modifications than other people. Let's see if I can find those charts and pull those up. I don't know if I can or not, but we're going to try. Okay, the association of childhood abuse and neglect with tattoos and piercing in the population. Okay, so tattoos and piercings were more common among individuals who reported childhood abuse and neglect. The proportion of participants with tattoos and piercing increased as the severity of all assessed types of abuse and neglect. were factored into their studies. So these are some of the charts that I find really intriguing. This one here is just a bar chart, and that is showing you the tattoo and body modifications in people with no abuse or neglect reported. And you can see it's significantly higher on the other side with people whose abuse and neglect have been reported. All right, if you can read these, let me see if I move this around here. Emotional abuse. Well, let's look at this one with the red, which is the highest. And you see it's in the severe extreme category. That's sexual abuse. The next highest would be the black line, which is physical abuse. We have a tie here with the pink and the blue for emotional abuse and emotional neglect. With emotional abuse and neglect are pretty much tied. And then when you get down to physical neglect, that is the lowest. But these are the severe. You can look at this chart and see that we're going for none or minimal to low to moderate, moderate to severe, and severe to extreme. I'm not sure where you guys fit on this chart, but I'm pretty well betting you can judge where I fit on this chart. Now there is a childhood questionnaire, and I mean this is a topic we can go on, for a different episode for weeks on this study. I just wanted to get it out there because I really, like I said, I found it really interesting, and it's almost validating, and it has made me step back and look at people and say, hey, they're not a criminal, they're not a murderer, they're not a prisoner. I think when I see tattoos, a lot such as mine, I think of trauma. And so there is a questionnaire here. I'm going to pull this up. Okay, here, let's look at this. This is tattoos after trauma, 6 qualities of healing. Okay, so one of the first things that they're talking about, and this is Psychology Today, is redefining yourself. And I find this is very, very true in redefining yourself. With a lot of people, we're trying to, for some, the process of physical transformation, albeit painful, is like the birth of a new self depicted in images or words. Now, a lot of the people that I know with tattoos that I've taken to get tattoos, that's very much why they wanted them. They're sort of telling you their story from the inside. One of the women that got, a huge phoenix, the people that have the owls, they're saying, hey, I'm a survivor. A 24-year-old victim of SA described her body art as a visual reminder that she's still alive and okay. She added that if I'm having a hard time, as soon as I touch my wrist and run my finger over the word survivor, it helps. Okay, and then you have redefining self. Maybe you were someone that grew up sort of like I did, very oppressed and very neglected, a lot of emotional abuse. And it's almost like the pain is wanting to scream out, hey, I'm here. You didn't see me my entire childhood. You didn't see the pain I was in, but I am here and I'm telling you about it now. That's sort of what I see that. The tattoo is a visual demarcation from the new self to the old self. Now, I have to say, the tattoos that I have, most of them, I'm going to go with 95%. I started getting as I was going through my trauma journey and deep in therapy, and we were discovering this and we were discovering that and all sorts of things, and it would be so painful, and I didn't want to take a blade or do anything like that was going to harm me, but this was going to be a reminder. I would still get that endorphin rush, but it was a reminder for me, and it was transforming. And I think for myself, I could say, yeah, a lot of it was, hey, look at me. I'm here. I lived through the pain of my childhood and my early adult life, and my adult life actually up until I completely fell apart. It was nothing but trauma, neglect, abuse, all the way through. Narrating healing in words and images. Yes, on my arm here, I have, on this arm, I remember when it's kind of curved right there. But what it says, and I remember when I got this was in 2014, and I was going through a horrible divorce and just my world had collapsed, and there was nothing that I could do to help with it. And this says live, laugh, love, and dream, which is what I wanted to do because my life at that point had been very difficult with a lot of the children we had. My marriage had had problems. My parents had died, had grandbabies born early. I lost a grandbaby. I lost my own son, my first son. I lost him. And then my other son, my next eldest son, was the victim of a hit and run driver. And he was left for dead on the side of the road. So I could tell as my traumas increased, my tattoos increased, undoing the shame of hidden trauma, narrating in healing words and images, which is exactly kind of what I've done, undoing the shame of hidden trauma. And this may seem, it doesn't fit. This doesn't fit. How are you going to go from this inner pain and trauma that you put it on the outside of your body and have people judge you? For me, I really think it is and was. Ask me about my story. I'll tell you. There was a time I wasn't able to do that. And I can do that now. And I can see the majority of my tattoos came at that time. During that time, when so much was going on and I was totally out of control. One of the only things that I could control at that time was what I put on my body. And that came along with a rush of endorphins. Okay, fostering a connection is another one that we see in tribes, in communities. I don't want to say in gangs because I guess they are, but that's not really a word I like to use. So I found that really, really, really interesting. And let's stop that one right there. Did we do this? How tattoo and piercing can serve as a coping mechanism. Okay, yeah, this is what I wanted to talk about. Okay, here we are. Upon experiencing physical pain, the brain releases endorphins, which are chemicals produced by the body to relieve pain. This eases one's emotional distress by working on the pain center in the brain that senses both emotional and physical pain. So yeah, there is evidence for this. Moreover, the physical pain is also intricately linked with an element of control one feels over their bodies. Unlike emotions or social pain, it is possible to control our physical pain. Yes, 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 and yes. That just, for me, that makes a lot of sense because that's exactly what I was experiencing. I didn't understand it at the time, but I look back now and as I said, with the way I look at other people that have tattoos, my first thought is, what have they gone through? I was on a ship last year. It was really kind of interesting. This odd little man got in the elevator with me. I had on shorts and a t-shirt, and he said, just blurt it out. And, what would make anyone want to cover themselves with tattoos? And I looked at him and I really didn't know what to say at that point. But I was thinking a lot of trauma. And you don't know my story. But on the other hand, he noticed me and I'm a survivor. And I think that's what a lot of my tattoos say. I am a survivor. Now I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about my tattoos. I guess we could do it in another session. But I do have words that can remind me that I'm a survivor and what to do. I have this one, so I don't harm. The others kind of were coming because there was therapy and I also felt very unbalanced. I feel balanced now. I had a tattoo of my granddaughter put on my right thigh when she was dressed as Audrey Hepburn. And then on my left leg, I have the birth month flowers of my kids, my parents, and my grandchildren. But what I want to get to right here is the childhood assessment. Where is it? Childhood assessment. And I want you guys to go along with me as we do this. This is the short form. It says they tested people in the United States, female and male, adolescents to adults. And when was this study done? The short form includes 28 items, 25 clinical and 3 validity, measuring an individual's experience of child abuse and neglect retrospectively, which I think is the only way we can really examine that is retrospectively, because at the time, what are we doing? We're trying to survive. We're in survival mode. We have no idea what the heck's going on most of the time. And a lot of those boxes have been buried. I still have a lot of buried boxes. All right, so let's go through this. And let me look down here. The response: never true, rarely true, sometimes true, often true, or very often true. You guys score yourselves and drop it down, and tell me what was what, but score this. Let me know how you guys fare. And I'll be going with a 5 on all of mine. Okay, emotional abuse. People in my family called me things like stupid, lazy, or ugly. Yes, very much. I felt very much an outsider. One of the things my dad would say, which he didn't mean it in this way, but it's the way I took it. People would say, "Oh, you have such beautiful children," or "You have such a beautiful daughter," and he would say, "Yeah, for a girl, she's okay." Well, that kind of left me feeling that I wasn't okay for my dad for whatever reason. All right, I thought that my parents wished I had never been born. So let's put a 5 on that one too, because straight from my mother's mouth, I heard those words. And that took me a while to get over, and that's also something that I had boxed away for quite some time. And when it hit me, my therapist kept wanting to go into my childhood. I was like, no, we're not going there. And when we did, I'm glad I had already had like a decade of therapy behind me, because it probably would have destroyed me. And now I understand what was going on with my parents and the triangulation that was happening with my mother and me and my grandmother, her mother. Okay, so I felt that someone in my family hated me. What do you guys score on that? Mine's a 5. The next one: people in my family said hurtful or insulting things to me. Yes. Yes. That's another 5. So far I have 5, 10, 15, 20. Number 5, I believe I was emotionally abused. Yes, I was emotionally abused. I was crying out hard to get noticed by my mother, especially. My dad, as you guys know, was gone for about 27 days of the month, every month while we were growing up. And I can't speak for my brothers, but for me, it left me feeling very abandoned with a mom that was not emotionally available for us. Okay, let's go to physical abuse. I got hit so hard by someone in my family that I had to see a doctor or go to the hospital. That is one that I could say no to with my family of origin. Now, with my first husband, yes, I was in the hospital from the first week we were married for various things. And that first time I can remember, I should have looked back, because there were all the signs, classic signs of narcissistic abuse. Did I listen? No, I didn't. I ended up in the hospital, broken ribs, and I stayed with that person for 3 months until I found out I was pregnant. When I found out I was pregnant, I loved that baby enough. I'd already lost one baby, and with this baby, I didn't want this baby to experience what I was living through, and I hightailed it out of there and got back with my mom and my dad. So, yeah. Well, they're saying here a teacher, or that they would notice, a teacher, a neighbor, or a doctor would notice. No, this was when I was older. All right, now we get to sexual abuse, the fun topic. Someone tried to touch me in a sexual way or tried to make me touch them. We're going to go a 5 with this. The first that I can remember hands coming towards me. That was probably my first memory. I still don't know whose hands those were. I really don't care to know whose hands those were. And then there were some kids that lived down the street from us that I can't remember if one of my brothers was with me or not. But when this stuff started happening, I ran, and I ran, as fast as I could to get home. Yeah, so that was there. And then my childhood doctor. So, yeah, I mean, I could score 15 on that one right there. Someone threatened to hurt me or tell lies about me unless I did something sexual with them. Not that I can remember. Someone tried to make me do sexual things or watch sexual things. Yes. Yes. Those kids in the closet. Yes, I remember it clearly. I remember what the little girl looked like. I don't remember her name. It seems like she had a brother. And it was on Susan Street in Arlington, Texas. So I had to have been between the ages of 5 and 9, I think, when that happened. Someone molested me. Yes. And there's a story that goes along with that that's pretty crazy. But as far as some of the memories I have or things that I tend to avoid, it's like I can't take a bath in a bathtub that looks like an old bathtub. I believe that I was sexually abused. No, I know I was. I know I was. And I think one of the worst ones was having my childhood doctor do what he did, because he was a very well-respected member of the community. And he was a team doctor for the Texas Rangers when we were kids, the baseball team there where I grew up. All right, we go to emotional neglect. There was someone in my family who helped me feel that I was important or special. All right, I've got kind of a tiered answer with this, because within my family, my nuclear family, no, we were not close in any way. My aunts made me feel important and special, but most of all, my grandmother made me feel important and special, which was kind of a double-edged sword. As I mentioned before, there was triangulation happening between my grandmother, me, and my mother, because I was getting attention that my mother needed from her mom when she was a child and didn't get. I felt loved. No. I remember trying to feel that my mother, I would do things to try and see how my mom would react, to see if she really did love me. So, yeah, no, I did not feel loved, except by my outer ring. I guess I'm thinking I'm Saturn or something. But yeah, they were like in the orbit. And they're the ones that did make me feel loved. People in my family looked out for each other. Oh, hell no. That did not happen. That just did not happen. No one looked at my family of origin. We were not close. We weren't close in any way. I think my parents, they did what they knew. And I don't really hold anything against them, because I know their traumas. And when you know someone's traumas, you can't be angry with them, because you know why they did the things they did. All right. So my family was a source of strength and support. No. But I can tell you my strength and support came from my grandmother and from my aunts and my uncles. That's where I found it. But unfortunately, they moved here, they moved there, and here we are. I remember feeling really abandoned, which is crazy for me to say, when my aunts moved away, because I was stuck. It was like I had no one. And, Dad was always gone. All right, let's go on to physical neglect. I had a lot of physical neglect. How about you? Where's your score in this? I didn't have enough to eat. We had enough to eat, although it wasn't good food. We were not given good food. I remember being sick at school one day, feeling kind of sick, and I went in to see the nurse, and she was pretty scary looking, let me tell you. She had those big old black horn glasses, I guess. I don't know what you call them. And she scared me. And she was asking what was wrong. And I said, my stomach's hurting. And she said, well, what did you eat for breakfast? I said, like a Pop-Tart. She said, that's not breakfast. And I was really angry, because she was accusing my mom of not feeding me. Well, now I look back and it's like, well, she did or she didn't. We had things to eat, but it wasn't high quality. I knew there was someone to take care and protect me. No, I did not know that at all. I felt safe when I was with my grandmother, and I felt safe when I was with my aunts and their families. But at home, I did not feel safe. We were locked out of the house. There was a time, I don't know if I've told you guys or not, that when I had to have been 3 or 4 years old, and I was in the backyard when I lived in Midland, Texas, and I wanted to come in the house, and I was crying, and my mom wouldn't let me in. She's on the phone. And finally, she came and opened up the slider, and she said, "You need to cut it out, or I'm gonna put you in the trash can." And the trash cans were in the alleys. And I said, "I'll just tell them to bring me back." And she looked at me, and she's like, "They don't speak English." I cried the rest of the day. I didn't go to the door until it was opened for me again. All right, my parents were too high or drunk to take care of the family. My mother was not much of a drinker, but she was not emotionally present. My dad was an alcoholic, but he was also gone 27, 28 days of the month. When he was home, he was drinking, but I don't know if I could put his lack of care for us into the alcohol family. I think it was more the way he was raised. I had to wear dirty clothes. This is something that really is kind of creepy. I had never really thought of it until the other day. I found a picture of my mom and me and my brother. And I noticed, oh, my mom looks really cute, which I don't remember ever really getting dressed up or having makeup or anything when I was a kid. But when I looked at my brother and me, we looked really cute. We had cute clothes on. My hair was done. My brother had his hair cut. And for that to make that much of an impact on me, seeing that photograph, I think that says a lot. It really fits in this I had to wear dirty clothes category, I think, or tattered clothes, because it wouldn't have made that much of an impact on me had we been clothed appropriately all the time. There was someone there to take me to the doctor if I needed it. No. I don't really know how to answer that. I'd have to put a 5. One time my mother wasn't going to take me to the doctor. I was in 7th grade. I had had a bicycle accident on my 10-speed that I'd saved all my money up to buy myself. I had those rat trap pedals. How many of you guys remember those? Like, I've still got the scars on my legs from those pedals. And there was an accident, and there was another woman that saw me in the road. She brought me home in my bicycle, and I couldn't move my arm, and I was telling my mom, "There's something wrong, can't move my arm." She didn't take me to the hospital, like, for hours, and then when we got to the hospital, I'm limping behind her because I couldn't keep up with her. I had sprained one of my ankles as well, and a woman saw me and went and got a wheelchair and took me into the hospital, and that was really kind of embarrassing. I mean, but it wasn't odd for my family, if that makes sense. There was nothing I wanted to change about my family. I really don't know how to answer that because at the time, well, I did. I had an imaginary family. I did have an imaginary family. And this is when we were living in Arlington, I think on Burning Tree. I can remember having an imaginary family. So that has to say something. I had the perfect childhood. Haha. That's what I told my therapist every time he tried to get close to childhood issues. I was like, no, Dad was a corporate pilot. My mom was always home. Well, she was always home, but we were locked out of the house. I wouldn't go there until just a few years ago. I had the best family in the world. You know what? In a lot of ways, I did. My aunts and my grandmother and my uncles were there. I felt safe and protected with them. They were amazing. And with my mom and dad, I loved them so much. I was looking for their love everywhere. And just those memories are crazy. But yeah, what are your answers on these? I don't know if you've kept track of your score or not, but my gosh, I think there's only one question in here that I don't identify with. There is a lot of research out there connecting tattoos with trauma. Now, some of my tattoos I got just because I thought they were beautiful, like the one I have on my back. But when I started researching this, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is so amazing because not only did it validate things inside of me, but like I said, it let me have less judgment towards other people. And I feel real hypocritical now that I was all over my girls about having sleeves or tattoos on their arms or anything. And look at me, who am I to say? Look at this. I mean, yes, I am tattooed and I love it. I absolutely love it. My tattoos do tell my story. They tell the story of a survivor. Many of my tattoos came at points where I didn't think I could live any longer. And I needed that timeout, and I needed that endorphin rush to be able to get past that minute. I was speaking with a woman the other day, and you know, she's just lost someone very significant, and she was talking about she didn't want to go on, and I was like, okay, it's like day by day, sometimes it's minute by minute. She said it's millisecond, like by millisecond, and I can totally identify with her on that. So I would just really like to encourage you guys, when you see someone that's fully tatted, stop before you judge and just think what they must have endured to have those tattoos. And I'm not saying, like my uncle said, causation and correlation are not the same thing. There are people out there that have beautiful tattoos just because, hey, we live in the Pacific Northwest. It's cultural now. Everyone is tattooed, but I know mine are trauma-based. Just give people the same as you would want given to you. This has been kind of a difficult episode to do, just for the fact that I almost feel like I'm having to defend myself, which I'm not. It's validating. I don't know, it's a crazy mixed up bundle of feelings. It's just like, oh my gosh. I know there's a lot of validation in there. And like I said, I see my friends, it's like, yeah, if you're going to have your neck tattooed, there's some pain there. There's some trauma there, because you're not coming around my neck with a needle. I'm sorry, no way, no how. Not going to do it. So yeah, give people some grace, guys. And tattoos, they're a great conversation starter. And right now, I can't see myself without them. I can hide them. Let me know. What do you guys think about trauma and tattoos? Do you have any trauma tattoos? What are your traumas from? If you want to come on the show, let me know. I mean, this is an awesome topic to talk about. Kind of an explain to people that look at us like, you're less than. No, you know what? If anything, I'm more than, because I have gone through hell and back, and I have survived. I think next week I want to do the different types of tattoos that survivors get, why they get them, and yeah, let's go from there. Thank you so much for letting me be a part of your day and for you being a part of my day. All right, not much more to say except you guys have a fantastic rest of your day, and I'll see you again soon.